Hey there, bar is open, so let's review the famous Grouse. Hi, SG Alcohol Guy here, giving you honest reviews on the alcohols that I am tasting. And as mentioned, today we'll be reviewing the famous Grouse. And to me, this is an interesting whiskey because if you look at the label here, it says, by appointment to Her Majesty the Queen, Scotch Whisky Blenders, Michael Globe and Son Limited. So they actually have some sort of recognition from the royal family. This is a blended Scotch whisky, which is the finest Scotch whiskies, expertly blended and matured in a seasoned oak casks for a rich, rounded sweetness. So I'm expecting a very smooth and sweet whiskey here. I'm not expecting anything peaty whatsoever. You can even scan a QR code at the back to find out more. And in spite of their heritage, the famous Grouse is retailing at a very reasonable 49 Singapore dollars per bottle. For that, you will get a 700 ml bottle with 40% alcohol content. And how I review whiskies will be in three ways. Number one, I will review it neat. Number two, I will be adding in some water, just a few drops of water to open up the whiskey to see how that makes any changes. And number three, I'll be having it on the rocks. Now I prefer to use an ice ball, but whether you want to use crushed ice, you want to use normal ice cubes, that's really up to you. There's no right or wrong, it's just your personal preference. But let's start with neat. And I will be using a pourer for this to ensure that a very nice professional pour without spilling too much on the dear. And as I said that, I did mess up a bit. So, and looking at the color, I know it doesn't play a part because colorings are added to the whiskies to make them look the way they look. But this one just comes across as a very dirty orange, a very pale dirty orange. So it doesn't give an impression of being a very nice, strong whiskey. It does look like, it gives off the impression that it's less polished. But more importantly is give the glass a little bit of a swirl and notice how long it takes, for it to come down the sides of the glass onto the pour. So the longer it takes for it to come down, the longer the finish is going to be. Now I did notice that it took about 15 to 20 seconds before it started coming down. But once it did, it flowed down really, really quickly. So expect the finish to last about 15 to 20 seconds and then disappear. But let's find out with a taste test. And usually for the first time you're having it, the neat, I would recommend exhaling. Take a sip, then inhale and exhale to really let the flavor travel through your mouth and through your nose. Taste test one. Interestingly, it tastes a little bit oaky. There's a wooden dryness in the whiskey. I can't taste the sweetness. I just feel a lot of alcohol burn coming down up to here, the middle of my stomach. But there's not much other flavors on my tongue. Honestly, there's nothing spectacular about this famous Grouse. It's a drinkable whiskey, neat, very drinkable, with very interesting oaky dryness. Not much taste. It's so unremarkable, I'm speechless on how to describe it further. So instead of struggling, let's add some water to it to see whether this opens up the flavors a little bit more. Give it a bit of a swirl. Now you've noticed that I didn't do the typical nosing of the whiskey, and I'm glad I didn't. I'm quite sure, based on what I've tasted, it would smell just like those nail polish remover, those varnish lacquer kind of smell. It won't tell you much. I think I'll reserve the nosing of the whiskies for the single malts. I'll reserve them for slightly higher end whiskies. For blended Scotch whiskies, I'll give it a miss. Now I've added a bit of water to it. but I'll still do the same way of testing, which is the exhale, a sip, then inhale and exhale. So taste test 2. Interestingly, the taste got elevated. So the bit of sweetness has appeared. The oakiness is also elevated. It's just a lot more dry at the back of my throat now. So if I'm talking about a finish, it's a very dry finish for this whiskey. With the water, the whiskey burn pretty much disappeared. Very light burn coming down, but barely there. So it's a more acceptable drink now. I can actually taste some form of flavor from the whiskey, which is the sweetness. But again, still unremarkable. It's just a nice, simple, sweet whiskey with an oaky dryness at the end. So let's see how it goes on the rocks. Small amounts this time round. There you go. As you can see, it's a much smaller pour than what I usually do for my reviews. The main reason being I'm not enjoying it so much yet. But the show must go on with taste test 3, and because it's nice and chilled, I don't have to do the exhale, sip, inhale, exhale thing. I will just drink it as it is. Here goes. Having it on the rocks added a spiciness to the sweetness. So it's still a very sweet whiskey, definitely very sweet whiskey, but now there's a level of spiciness to it. I can't taste that dryness anymore. I don't have that finish, that oaky dryness, but I do have a sweet and spicy bite on my tongue. And that's quite pleasant actually. I'm actually enjoying this a lot more with ice. And with ice, again, the whiskey burn is completely gone, so it's easy to drink now. So it's a smooth whiskey with a very overriding sweetness, but a hint of spiciness in the initial sip or two. So that lasts like about 5 seconds and it's gone, but it just changed the texture of this whiskey a little bit. So for this famous Grouse, whether you have it neat, a little bit of water to open up the whiskey, or having it on the rocks. My preference is on the rocks because at least there's some layers to it, there's more flavors appearing, and it makes it a little bit more enjoyable. But by itself, it's kind of unremarkable. Hey there, thanks for watching up to this point. I just want to state that all these reviews are based on my personal taste, preferences, and opinions. They're not to be used as an industry standard. I do, however, want to find out what you think about this famous Grouse blended Scotch whisky and how do you drink it, right? Drop me some comments, let's compare some notes. If you're still here, do help me click the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification bell because I upload 2 new videos every week. Also, if you know of anyone who enjoys watching such reviews, do help me send them the link to this video as well. Most importantly, my friend, happy drinking!